This is the story of something truly disturbing that happened to me. I'm going to tell you everything exactly how it happened. I stayed at an Airbnb once and I wish I never had. I still get chills thinking about it. It started last summer. I had been traveling for work and I was exhausted. I wanted a quiet weekend somewhere peaceful. Hotels were all booked up because of some local festival, so I checked Airbnb. There was this one place just outside of town, a little cabin in the woods. The pictures looked perfect. Cozy, clean, with big windows and surrounded by trees. The host had great reviews. People said it was peaceful and a hidden gem. So I booked it for 2 nights. When I got there, it was just as the photos showed, maybe even better. The sun was setting behind the trees, and everything looked golden and calm. There was no one around for miles. I liked that. The host wasn't there to greet me, but they'd left the key under a flower pot, just like the message said. The cabin smelled like old wood and fresh pine. Everything inside was quiet. Too quiet, maybe, but I brushed it off. I unpacked, made some tea, and sat on the porch watching the woods darken. I remember thinking, this is exactly what I needed. That night, I went to bed early, but I woke up around 2:30 a.m. I don't know why. I wasn't dreaming. I just opened my eyes suddenly. It was dead silent. Not a single sound. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Then I heard it. Floorboards creaking. Slow, steady footsteps above me. But here's the thing. This was a 1-story cabin. There was no upstairs. I sat up, heart pounding. The sound stopped. I waited. Nothing. Maybe the wood was settling, I told myself. Old houses make weird noises, right? I was too tired to think straight, so I laid back down. But just as I started to relax, I heard something even worse. A whisper. Right by my ear. I jumped up and turned on the lamp. No one was there. The whole cabin was empty. Just me. I checked the doors. Still locked. I checked the windows. Shut tight. I even went outside with my phone flashlight, thinking maybe someone had messed with me through a window. But it was pitch black, and the trees looked like they were leaning in too close. I hurried back inside and locked the door again. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat on the couch with the light on, just waiting for the sun to come up. The next morning, I convinced myself I was just imagining things. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe it was stress from work. I almost packed up and left anyway, but I had already paid for 2 nights, and it felt silly to run because of a noise. I went into town for breakfast and stayed out most of the day, trying not to think about it. I came back in the evening just before dark. As I unlocked the cabin door, I noticed something strange. The welcome mat was gone. I know it was there before. I even wiped my feet on it the night before. Now it was just gone. Inside, everything looked the same, until I walked past the bedroom. The bed was made, perfectly, but I hadn't made it. In fact, when I left that morning, I left the blankets messy on purpose. I remember doing it. I stood there just staring at the bed. My mouth went dry. I checked the rest of the cabin again. Every room, every closet, even under the bed. Nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside while I was gone. I messaged the host. I asked if they or a cleaner had come by. Hours passed. No reply. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe I should leave, but the sun had gone down already, and I wasn't sure I wanted to drive through the woods at night. Around midnight, I heard the sound again. The same footsteps above me. Slow, careful, like someone didn't want to be heard. My skin prickled. I grabbed the flashlight and crept down the hallway, following the sound. It was coming from the far end of the cabin, near a closet I hadn't really looked at before. It was one of those narrow closets built into the wall. I opened it slowly. Nothing inside. But the back panel looked off, like it didn't match the rest. I knocked on it. Hollow. I found a screwdriver in the kitchen drawer and pried it loose. Behind the panel was a small crawl space, and inside it, a sleeping bag, food wrappers, a phone charger. Someone had been living inside the walls. I stumbled, back in pure panic. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I just know I ran. I ran out of that cabin into the dark woods, got in my car, and drove until I hit the main road. I didn't even care that I left most of my stuff behind. I called the police when I got to a gas station. They said they'd send someone to check it out. A few days later, I got a message from the sheriff's office. They found evidence that someone had been staying in that crawl space. Food, clothes, even a notebook filled with strange drawings, and what looked like a list of Airbnb guests. My name was in it. They never caught the person. The host finally replied a week later, acting all surprised and saying they had no idea how someone could have gotten in. I didn't believe them. I still don't. I think they knew. Or maybe they were part of it. I reported the listing, of course. Airbnb took it down. But that doesn't mean much. That cabin could be listed again under a new name, a new host. Sometimes, I still wonder what would have happened if I stayed a third night, or if I hadn't checked that closet. Would I have woken up with someone standing over me? Would I have disappeared, just another name in a notebook hidden behind a wall? I've never used Airbnb since. I stick to hotels now, ones with cameras, and staff and people around. So yeah, that's the story. That's my disturbing true Airbnb horror story. And I hope, if you ever rent a place off the internet, you check every corner before you go to sleep. Because someone might already be there, watching, waiting. This is the story of something that still haunts me to this day. I'm going to tell you about the most disturbing real Airbnb experience I've ever had. I'm not making any of this up. You can believe it or not, but it happened to me, and I haven't been the same since. So this was in 2022, when I was doing a solo road trip across the country. Just me, my car, and a bag of clothes. I was in Oregon at the time, exploring some small towns and trying to stay off the beaten path. I had booked a few hotels along the way, but for one night, everything nearby was either sold out or crazy expensive. That's when I turned to Airbnb. I found this little guest house in the middle of the forest, about 20 minutes outside of a small town called Silver Falls. The listing said it was a peaceful nature escape. The pictures looked nice. Clean interior, wood floors, rustic charm. The price was cheap, and the host had decent reviews. Not many, but enough to make me feel okay about it. I booked it, got the address, and just before sunset, I arrived. The place was tucked down a long dirt road. No streetlights, no other houses nearby. Just trees. Endless trees. When I pulled up, the guest house was already unlocked, and there was a note on the table that said, "Make yourself at home. I'm next. Or if you need anything." Signed, Martin. I never actually saw Martin. The place was cozy at first glance. One bedroom, a small kitchen, living room, and a back door that led to a deck facing the woods. It smelled like wood smoke and old books. Kind of comforting. I cooked myself a quick dinner, watched a little something on my laptop, and then decided to turn in early. It was so quiet out there you could hear your own heartbeat. Around 1 a.m., I woke up to a sound. At first I thought it was just an animal outside, maybe a raccoon or something. But then I heard it again. A thud. Soft, but close. Like it came from inside the house. I sat up in bed and held my breath. Another thud. Closer this time. Like someone was walking, barefoot, across the wooden floor. But I hadn't heard any doors open. I reached for my phone. No signal. Of course. I got up and grabbed the flashlight I always keep in my bag. Slowly, I stepped out into the hallway. Every part of me was alert, like something deep in my body knew something wasn't right. I walked into the living room. Empty. Kitchen. Empty. I checked the back door. Locked. Then I heard it again. This time it came from the bedroom I had just walked out of. A sharp, heavy thump, like something falling. I froze. I was just in there a minute ago. I turned around, heart pounding, and walked back slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand. When I entered the bedroom, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There was a shoe, my shoe, in the middle of the floor. I hadn't left it there. I remembered taking my shoes off neatly by the bed, but this one was now across the room. Someone had been in there. Had to be. I backed away and grabbed my car keys. I didn't care how late it was. I needed to get out of there. But before I could open the front door, I heard a voice. It came from right behind me, a whisper. It said, "You're not supposed to leave yet." I turned around and shined the flashlight, but no one was there. I ran. I threw open the door, sprinted to my car, jumped in and locked it. I didn't even stop to grab my bag. I just started the engine and tore down that dirt road like a maniac. I didn't stop driving until I hit a 24-hour diner 2 towns over. I called the police, told them someone was in the house I rented. They said they'd send someone out. A few hours later, I got a call back. This part is where things got even worse. The officer said they found signs that someone had been living in the crawl space beneath the guest house. There were food wrappers, blankets, even a pair of binoculars. And get this, they also found a small camera hidden inside a vent in the bedroom. A working one. When they tried to contact the host, Martin, the number was disconnected. Turns out, the person listed as the host had been dead for over a year. His name really was Martin, but he had died in a car accident. The Airbnb account was never shut down. Someone else had been using it, pretending to be him, to rent out the house, to lure people in. And someone, maybe that person, maybe someone else, had been hiding under the floor, watching me, moving things around and whispering through the vents. I don't know what would have happened if I stayed longer. I don't even want to think about it. Airbnb investigated, of course. Took down the listing. I got some automated emails saying they were sorry for the inconvenience. But that doesn't fix what happened. That doesn't erase the image of my shoe, moved by someone I never saw. That doesn't stop me from waking up at night thinking I hear footsteps in my own house. So yeah, that's my disturbing true Airbnb horror story. If you ever book a quiet place in the woods, especially one that seems too cheap, just do yourself a favor. Check the crawl space, check the vents, and make sure your host is actually alive. This is the story of a weekend I'll never forget. one I wish I could erase from my mind. I'm going to tell you about something that happened to me when I stayed at an Airbnb. This isn't just a creepy story. It really happened. And I still get chills when I talk about it. It was in the fall of 2021. I had just broken up with my girlfriend and wanted to get away for a bit. Nothing crazy, just a weekend alone to clear my head. I found this Airbnb cabin in upstate New York. It looked perfect, small, cozy, surrounded by woods, and best of all, no Wi-Fi. Just what I needed. Total silence. The listing said it was owned by an older couple who lived on the property in the main house nearby, but the guest cabin was private. It had great reviews, and the pictures made it look like a dream. I booked it for 2 nights. Got there just before sunset. The place looked exactly like the pictures, maybe even better. It was quiet, peaceful, and the fall leaves gave everything a golden glow. The main house was a few hundred feet away, and I saw an old woman on the porch wave at me. I waved back. She didn't say anything, just smiled. Inside the cabin, everything was neat and clean. Wood panel walls, small fireplace, a big window that looked out into the forest. I felt good. Finally, some peace. That night I made some tea, read a book, and went to bed early. Around 2 a.m., I woke up needing to use the bathroom. It was one of those tiny bathrooms off the hallway, and while I was in there, I heard something strange. Soft knocking. Not on the front door, on the back window. I froze. I didn't move for a full minute, just listened. Another knock. Still soft, like someone using just their knuckles. I finally got the courage to peek out the tiny bathroom window, but I couldn't see much. It was too dark. I turned off the bathroom light, hoping my eyes would adjust. When I looked again, I saw something. A shape. A person, standing just outside the back window. Not moving. I couldn't see their face, just the outline of someone tall. They didn't knock again. They just stood there. I backed away slowly, heart pounding. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have cell service, and there was no landline. I checked the doors, still locked. I sat in the dark living room for what felt like hours, gripping a fire poker, waiting to hear footsteps, glass breaking, anything. But nothing came. Eventually, I must have dozed off on the couch because I woke up to daylight coming through the window. I ran outside, looked around, no footprints, no signs that anyone had been there. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it was just a shadow and my half-asleep brain turned it into something worse. I told myself it was fine. That was mistake number 1. The second night was even worse. It started with the lights. Just after 10 p.m., the lights in the cabin flickered, then went out. I thought it was a power outage, but when I looked out the window I saw the porch light on the main house still glowing. So, not the whole area. Just my cabin. I lit a few candles and tried to stay calm. I figured the circuit, tripped or something. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps on the porch. I held my breath and peeked out through the curtain. I couldn't see anyone. But then something tapped the window. Not a knock, more like a scrape, like nails or metal dragging lightly across the glass. I stepped back. The scraping stopped. A minute later, I heard the back door handle jiggle. Not hard, like someone trying to break in, but soft, like someone was testing it, trying to see if I had locked it. I wanted to scream. I grabbed my car keys and quietly slipped on my shoes. I didn't care how late it was. I had to get out. Opened the front door slowly, trying not to make a sound. Everything outside was still. I stepped out, locked the door behind me, and walked fast toward my car. Then I saw something that made me stop cold. A figure was standing behind the tree, at the edge of the woods, tall, thin, motionless. I couldn't see a face, just a pale shirt or maybe skin and dark pants. I pointed my flashlight, but they ducked behind the tree before I could catch a good look. I ran, jumped in the car, locked the doors, started the engine, and just as I turned on the headlights, I saw something else. In the back seat, a piece of paper. I hadn't left anything back there. I leaned back slowly, grabbed it with shaking hands, and read the words written in messy black ink. "We like when people stay." Here, that's it. No name, no explanation, just that one line. I drove. I drove faster than I ever had in my life. I didn't even stop to tell the hosts anything. I just got out of there. I didn't care about the money. I wanted to live. The next day, I reported the place to Airbnb. They said they'd look into it. Weeks passed. I got a refund, but no answers. Out of curiosity, I checked the listing again a month later. It was still up. But something was different. All the reviews were gone. All of them. And the profile picture for the host? It had changed. Now it was just a black square. No name. No photo. I checked again a week later, and the listing was gone entirely. I tried searching for the cabin online, but I couldn't find it anymore. Like it was never there. I don't know who that was outside the cabin. I don't know how that note got in my car, but I know what I felt. I was being watched, and not by one person. More than one. I've stayed at dozens of Airbnbs before, but I'll never stay in a cabin again. Not alone. Not in the woods, because sometimes these places aren't owned by sweet, old couples. Sometimes they're just waiting for someone like you to come spend the night. This is the story of something that happened to my cousin Sam, and I swear every word I'm about to tell you is true. It still gives me goosebumps when I talk about it. This is the disturbing true Airbnb horror story he went through last summer. After hearing it, you'll never book a remote Airbnb the same way again. Sam had just finished his finals and wanted to get away before starting his internship. He found this small, rustic Airbnb cottage listed as nature's escape in a quiet little town in Pennsylvania. It looked perfect. Wooden furniture, a fire pit out back, lots of trees and total privacy. The pictures made it seem like a dream for someone wanting a break from the noise of city life. He booked it for 3 nights. The host, named Laura, messaged him right after booking. She was polite, even a little too friendly. She said she wouldn't be there in person, but the key would be under the flower pot, and to message her if anything felt off. At the time, Sam didn't think anything of it. He just packed up his car and left. When he got there, the house looked just like the pictures, almost too perfect. Flowers in bloom, a cozy front porch, and the key exactly where she said it would be. There were even fresh cookies waiting for him on the kitchen counter with a little handwritten note. "Enjoy your stay, Laura." He was impressed. That first night was peaceful. He grilled some food, played music, and sat by the fire pit under the stars. Nothing weird happened. In fact, he called me and said, "Dude, this place is amazing. You'd love it." But everything changed the second night. It started with the doorbell. Yep, the cottage had a doorbell, and it rang at 2:13 a.m. Sam was already in bed, half asleep, when he heard it. At first, he thought he dreamed it. But then, It rang again. He got up, confused, and peeked through the little peephole in the front door. No one was there, just the porch light swaying a little in the breeze. He stood there for a full minute staring. Then he slowly opened the door just a crack and looked outside. Nothing. No footsteps on the gravel. No car engine. Just silence and trees. He shut the door, locked it, and went back to bed. He figured, maybe an animal triggered it or something. He wasn't scared yet, but then around 3 a.m., he woke up to the sound of someone walking around inside the house. Not outside. Inside. Slow, steady footsteps across the wooden floor. He froze. He hadn't heard any doors open, no glass breaking, but the steps were clear. Real. He reached for his phone, but it was dead. He swore he had charged it, but it was completely off. He got out of bed, heart pounding, and grabbed a metal fireplace poker from the corner of the room. The footsteps had stopped. He tiptoed into the hallway and flipped on the light. Nothing. Kitchen, empty. Living room, quiet. The only odd thing, the cookies on the counter were gone, every last one. Now he knew someone had been inside, and that's when he noticed something even stranger. The back door was unlocked. He always locked it before going to bed. Always. He bolted it shut, double-checked the windows, and stayed up the rest of the night, sitting on the couch with that poker in his hand. He didn't hear anything else, but he had the sickest feeling in his gut, like someone had been watching him. The next morning, Sam messaged Laura and asked if anyone had been on the property. She didn't reply. He waited an hour. Still nothing. He decided to pack up and leave, even though he had one night left. He tossed his stuff in the car and went back inside for one last check. That's when he saw something that nearly made him throw up. On the bathroom mirror, written in the steam like someone had just showered, were the words, "Thanks for the cookies." He hadn't used the shower that morning. That was the final straw. He got in his car and started driving out. As he turned onto the dirt road that led back to the main road, he looked in his rearview mirror and saw someone standing at the edge of the trees near the house. A woman, long dark hair, pale skin, wearing what looked like a white nightgown, just standing there, not moving, watching. He floored it. When he got back home, he reported the incident to Airbnb. They took down the listing, or at least that's what they told him. He never got a clear answer about what happened or who that woman was. A week later, he decided to look up the address online, just out of curiosity. And that's when he found the real horror. 3 years earlier, a woman named Laura had been murdered in that very house by an intruder, strangled in the bathroom. The case was never solved. Sam went pale. The Airbnb account had used her name. So who had been messaging him? Who baked the cookies? Who walked through the house at night? He called the police and gave them everything. Screenshots, location, the messages. They promised to investigate, but he never heard back. Now sometimes late at night he'll still get messages from that old Airbnb account. No name, just a message. One of them simply said, "You left too soon." He blocked it, changed his number, deleted the app. But the story stuck with him, and with me. That's why I always say, just because a place looks peaceful doesn't mean it's safe. People put too much trust in pretty pictures and star ratings, but you never really know who or what you're sharing the house with. So next time you book an Airbnb, remember Sam's story and double-check the locks.